I begin with 3 dedications, not in order of importance. To Nomi Lamb, who has given me so much inspiration, and it's based on her ideas about DIY culture and her interpretation of the non-linear narrative that I created this presentation. To everyone who is oppressed, not only by ableism or speciesism, but by all oppressions. Anyone who has ever been defined as other and felt the pain, exclusion, loneliness and violence of that definition. My journey is your journey, and my struggle ends only when yours is over and won. And thirdly, to a person who has helped me and supported me more than any other in my struggle to look beyond patriarchal and ableist definitions of myself and find out who I really am, as an individual and as a justice activist. I know it's a cliche to say it, but you know who you are. Thank you. By way of an introduction, I guess the best way I can describe what I'm going to do is kind of like an audio scrapbook. This presentation is mainly composed of adaptations of journal entries and my commentary on them, thus it is completely incoherent, but intentionally so. I also want to say this is very personal and difficult to read, so it may be difficult to listen to as well, so please be aware of that and take care of yourselves. Meet a young woman in a psychiatric hospital. She is sitting on the floor of a small room where every movement is muffled by the padding that covers every surface. But she isn't moving at all anymore. She is thinking about the walls around her. They are the walls inside her mind made real. She can touch them, or kick them and hurt her toes with her own insignificance and utter powerlessness. They enclose her, impregnably and indifferently, and face her blankly without watching. They are an eyeless presence, a somehow taunting symbol of her rapidly shrinking world. To give in to them would be so much less exhausting. She rests her head on her knees and closes her eyes. But of course, the walls are still there. Their silence is the self-satisfied silence of all those who are powerful, as they watch those who are helpless. They have no need to justify themselves, to apologise or explain. They leave her alone with herself. Her own perspective eats her up. The perspective that is the world's perspective. Don't touch anyone, you will hurt them. Things will go wrong. Betrayal, heartbreak, disaster are inevitable. The question is not if, but when. And what is the logic of this warning? Stop trying, stop struggling. No one understands or wants you as you are. Sink, be absorbed. What is it about walls like that makes you want to kick them? It's annoyingly predictable. Is it the secret subconscious knowledge that if enough people kicked them for long enough and hard enough, they really would fall down? What would happen next? Have we been hopping from perch to perch in our cages for so long that we have forgotten how to use our wings? How would we live without the violence of walls in a world set free? If it weren't for the walls, what is happening to me and everyone here would be their problem. They couldn't forget about us anymore. They would have to meet us and listen. Oppression is the story of walls. It is made up of walls, of chains, of barbed wire. It is a worldview built on exclusion. In the hospital, surrounded by diagnoses and theories and interpretations and the bored gaze of resentful staff, the woman writes, "Nobody knows who I really am." She pauses for a moment, feeling the emptiness beneath her anger. Then writes, "I'm not even sure I do." A moment from a movie I watched with my sister. A young woman says to the guy she's in love with, "You're the coolest person I've ever met and you don't even have to try." He replies, "I try really hard actually." I hated the movie, but that one line broke my heart. Because I know what it's like to spend all day, every day, around people who are your closest friends, and they don't notice, have no idea how hard you're trying. And the harder you try, the more you screw things up, and it's always your problem, not theirs. And on the rare occasions you actually get something right, when you feel yourself connecting with someone, and it's so amazing to have a glimpse of why people bother with this at all, and you feel like jumping for joy, you realise they're already turning away. Because this is normal for them, and this is what normal does. It stamps on all your achievements, your moments of triumph. There is always something better that's beyond your reach. There has to be. If it wasn't for the glittering mirage of normal on our horizon, we might begin to believe in ourselves. And this is the violence of pretending it is possible to define someone else's subjective experience, and, as both ableism and speciesism, and indeed all oppressions do, to define it as worthless. This is the violence of this mundane act of exclusion. In a culture made out of death, being sick is the healthiest response there is. It's either that or become part of their pathology. Oppression is a pathology from which we are all in recovery. This is cure oppression. If we can't be cured, we wait for normality to assign us a purpose, or simply put us in one of its rubbish dumps. It is because of cure oppression, the need to change to be accepted or understood or valuable, the definition of herself as a problem, of her every experience as pathology, that the young woman wrote in her diary that one of her goals, one of the things that would make her happy, was get better and learn how to make and keep friends. Her only hope of finding friends was to get better, to change everything about herself, to camouflage the dissonance of her perspective so successfully that people would no longer turn away in nervous or disdainful incomprehension. People would embrace the things with which she learned to hide herself, and maybe, deep inside where the real version of herself was hiding, she would feel it and be less alone. She would be accepted. She didn't fully realise at the time that she would be dead as well. Looking back at that young woman from where I am now, I don't understand her because she doesn't yet understand herself, but I recognise her, and I recognise the defences that make her armour. Mistrust forms a cage around her. She is terrified of loving. It will anchor her to a world she hates. She is desperate to be loved. This is how Audre Lorde's mythical norm works. Normal is a disguise. No one is like this person. But we all have to pretend that we are, or submit to the rules and worldview and version of reality created by those who pretend most successfully. We define nothing. Not even what we believe in, how we feel about our bodies, what we get to dream about. Our stories are silenced. The worlds that we still secretly believe we could have created together are shattered, like reflections in water that were so solid you could have stepped into them when a stone is thrown. The reflections never look quite the same again. The social construct of normal is that stone. Because of that stone, the young woman writes in her diary, "I wish I was somebody else. Anyone would do. I wish I was different. I wish I was dead." I am an X-ray, a collection of bones, an empty cage of ribs without a heart, an anatomical jigsaw that makes no sense. When they made me, they forgot that you need a purpose to live. My soul is scar tissue since they cut out my heart. I am a black hole. People's good intentions and false concern and curiosity and shock get lost in me. I swallow atonements and forgivenesses for breakfast and slowly starve to death. I have no memory of shining in my own small corner of the universe before I forgot I was a star, before I turned inside myself and swallowed all my light. I am an exile. My touch brings the contagion of truth. I have stepped across the border into the country of lost souls who stuck their finger up at salvation, with its price tags and cliches and comfort and chains, who demanded things like love and understanding and pain that doesn't have a movie script. They wanted to be heard so much. They wanted to touch and be touched without fear. They dreamed and imagined and fought with their fingers that bled to the bone, and they ended up here, where their songs go unheard and the silence bursts the eardrums and hopelessness whispers from the walls as they close in. Here, you can walk forever without knowing where you're going, without getting anywhere. I am invisible, but there is no lie big enough to hide me. They offered me medicine. I saw it was poison relabeled and ended up drinking it anyway. And they didn't know what to do about my choice. They didn't know how to write what happened next. It wasn't part of their story, so they wrote me out. I am a footnote you can read if you look closely, but my story has become a lie now. Only I can tell you the uncensored version that got erased. 2 definitions. Sentience. Having a subjective experience of the world around you, having your own unique world, having a story. Oppression. When these stories cease to matter. The young woman walks through the automatic doors of the psychiatric hospital into glaring sunshine. She stands still with the realization that she is still a prisoner and still surrounded by prisoners. Inside me, despair and a strange determined hopefulness link hands. There is so much still to be done. And here is the power I have protected from them. I think, I feel, I remember. These things make resistance. The world is afraid of me, for a very good reason. Okay, this is the last part, the final picture in the scrapbook. So before I tell you the story that ends this, I have one message, which is both my own message and on behalf of everyone who is oppressed and anyone who has experienced the violence of exclusion. And it's this: forget everything that you think you know about us. Because nobody except us can know our own truth. There are as many ways of being as there are beings, and there are as many versions of beauty as there are people searching for beautiful. This makes me smile. So, the story. The story begins a few days ago, when the young woman who became me was sitting in the park, and she was sitting beside a greyhound called Zammy, who was lying beside her, and the woman walked into the park pushing a wheelchair with a little girl in it who was perhaps 8 or 9 years old. And they stopped walking in a patch of sunlight right across the path from me, and the little girl gets out of the wheelchair and she just starts running in circles and dancing. Like, she flings her arms wide and she just feels how amazing it is to move and feel sun and be alive. And I watch her, and I see other people watching her. I see people walking past, and I wonder if they grope through their stifled minds for a definition or a label to define her, so that they can be condescending, so that they can turn away, discount her, discount whatever she's feeling as unimportant or non-existent, so that they can feel pity instead of wonder. And I think of how I tried so desperately, so constantly, for years, to relate, to understand, to impersonate, to take part. Because I thought I could be hollow inside and it would be alright. I could survive or continue to exist, or whatever this not living is called, so long as somebody cared about me. All the mess of nerves and contradictions and defences that hid me, and all my starving, inexhaustible hope. And all that time, I could have been dancing in the sun. So I watch her, and Zami lies beside me, and she's watching too, and I feel that she's perfectly contented. And I share my world for a moment with these two beings, and their calmness and joy. And I feel the vastness of a world made up of an infinity of perspectives. And I think about the possibilities which respect for all of them might bring. That struggle is before us. Right now, we inhabit a fragment of peace. Thank you. Bye.